Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back. Happy Friday. We made it through another week. Our second to last Friday, then we're almost there in the home stretch. Now let's get into our today in history. June 5th, 1968, Senator Robert Kennedy is shot at the Ambassador Hotel in Los Angeles after winning the California presidential primary. Immediately after he is announced to his cheering supporters that the country was ready to end its fractious divisions. Kennedy was shot several times by a 22-year-old Palestinian, Sirhan Sirhan. He died 2 days later. So I chose this one because I think it's pretty important, right? You guys know how much I like the Kennedy family and how interesting I find them. In class throughout the year, I spoke a lot about how there's a lot of conspiracy theories surrounding the Kennedy family and people saying that they're cursed, that all these terrible things happen to them. So this is, of course, after JFK's assassination. We're about 5 years out from since that has happened. That his brother Robert Kennedy is assassinated. Right? At the time of JFK's assassination, Bobby Kennedy, that's what most people called him, was Bobby. Bobby Kennedy was the Attorney General. So he was actively involved in politics for a pretty long time, and a lot of people thought that he had a really, really good shot at winning the presidency. So we would have seen a second Kennedy in office. Unfortunately, that never happened, and he was assassinated similarly as his brother. So pretty terrible stuff. Unfortunate for the Kennedy family. All right, let's get into our work. All right, so yesterday you guys had this lesson about the Vietnam War, and you got to read a little bit about what is the situation happening within Vietnam that is causing the tensions and causes this civil war to break out within the country. And then you had to look at why the U.S. gets involved in the Vietnam War. And it's very similar to why the United States was involved in the Korean War, in that the United States is practicing containment, right? We're trying to stop or limit the spread of communism because we're afraid that if it continues to spread, that because the Soviet Union is a communist country, that the Soviet Union will grow in size and power, and that's bad for the United States, that we are in direct competition with them, especially so during this Cold War time period, right? So you read a little bit about how the United States gets involved, what's going on, like what's the fighting like for soldiers in Vietnam, how people at home are reacting to it, and then how did the war end? And hopefully through reading all this stuff, you guys could see just really how controversial the Vietnam War was. We talk about, especially now with soldiers, there's so much support for soldiers, and they're viewed as heroes, and they're celebrated for the sacrifices that they make, and they're welcomed home with open arms. And that is not the way it was for soldiers who fought in Vietnam and Korea, because citizens were so angry that the United States was involved in the war, an anger that should have been directed at the government. Instead, it was directed at soldiers, who, most of whom had been drafted into the war, so were not serving because they enlisted. It wasn't like it was their choice to be soldiers. It was they were drafted and they had to go overseas. But unfortunately, a lot of these soldiers were the target of that anger that citizens felt for the government and their dislike of U.S. involvement in the war. And they were harassed when they came home. Soldiers were spit on. It was horrible. And it makes it even worse because of the way that fighting took place in Vietnam and Korea. Vietnam especially practiced guerrilla warfare, so these soldiers were on constant alert all the time, afraid that they were going to be attacked, not knowing when an attack was going to happen, where it was going to come from. It was brutal. So they came back with severe PTSD. And for those of you who don't know what PTSD is, it's post-traumatic stress disorder. And it's when you go through a traumatic experience, and because of that, you have like anxiety, and you can have these really vivid flashbacks where you hear a noise. Like, I've heard soldiers tell stories of, hearing a car backfire, and they're afraid that it's, an explosion, or, a soldier who sees a bag roll across the street and they think that it's a bomb, right? So that these quick movements or just sounds and smells and things that you catch out of the corner of your eye can bring you back, almost like a flashback, but it feels like you're living in that moment. So these soldiers are experiencing this extreme PTSD, and it's very hard for them to transition back to normal life. And that transition is made immensely harder by the fact that they were harassed, and there was really not much support for a lot of these soldiers coming home. So Vietnam War is probably one of the worst decisions that the United States has made in terms of our involvement, especially because after we removed troops from Vietnam, Vietnam fell to communism. So most people were kind of like, well, we did this, we sacrificed all these American lives for communism to take over the entire country ever. Anyway, and Vietnam is still communist today. So huge controversy in terms of U.S. involvement in Vietnam. All right, moving forward, this is your last official, formal lesson of middle school. Well, for social studies at least. This is so sad for me. But, you get to end it on a pretty cool topic. We're going to talk about the end of the Cold War. So what you have here, the first thing I'm going to ask you to do is identify 3 key differences between communism and capitalism, all right? In terms of, government involvement or the economy, or, what people are allowed to do. Just give me 3 ways that they are different from each other, and be specific. Like, in communism you can do this, but you can't do it in capitalism, or in capitalism you can do this, but you can't do it in communism, stuff like that. All right, and then you're going to read about how the Cold War comes to an end. I know this is not the most exciting way to end our lessons, but it's important for you to understand what happens here, and how a change in leadership really alters the course of the Cold War, both on the United States front and in the Soviet Union's front. All right, and I have highlighted and bolded several words for you. Right, you need to know perestroika. That's going to be really important. It's going to be the new form of government, or a government policy. Glasnost is going to be really important, and it's this idea of being more open with the rest of the world about what's going on in the Soviet Union, right? We talked about previously, Churchill had said that an iron curtain had descended across the continent, and it was that idea that the Soviet Union was shutting themselves off to the rest of the world, that whatever happened in the Soviet Union was kept in the Soviet Union, and it wasn't the rest of the world's business. And with new leadership, that totally changes. And Glasnost is, this is what's going on in the Soviet Union. These are the problems that we're experiencing, and we're being open and transparent about it. So that is a total shift in the way things are being run. And then finally, communist oppression. Right? We've talked about oppression before, but I just want to make sure that you guys understand, right? When you oppress something, right, to press is to push down, and when you oppress someone or something, right, you're keeping them down. So it's a way of controlling somebody or a group of people, right? And then you have these questions here based on that reading, right? 6 questions, nothing too crazy, and it comes all directly from the reading, all right? So maybe if you want to go down and read these questions first, this way you have a preview of what you're looking for, that might help you out a little bit. Okay, and then you have this political cartoon here that I'm asking you to interpret. So you have this sinking ship that's labeled the USSR, and then you have all these small little ships all around it, and these are all names of small satellite nations that were part of the Soviet Union, right? So just so you guys know, you may recognize some of them, you may not, that's fine, but these are all names of countries, okay? So just so you guys know that. All right. And then what is the main message? What is this cartoon trying to show you? All right. And then that is it. That is like the last formal Cold War lesson. It is not your last lesson of the year, though, so don't check out on me just yet. We do have a current events lesson that we're going to do, and then we are going to do just review very quickly. But you guys are winding down, all right? Please, if you haven't already done so, make sure you fill out that survey because I want to try and make a plan for making a schedule for those of you who said that you would like me to come drop off the little gift that I'm putting together for you guys. I need to kind of create like a schedule for myself and give you guys a time frame and a date so you know when I'm going to be stopping by so that you can be home. I would assume that if you want me to stop by in person, that it's because you'd like to see me. So I will be getting that to you as soon as I get answers from everybody. And if I don't get an answer, probably by Tuesday from you, then I'm just going to assume that you just want me to mail whatever it is home to you. All right. But I hope you guys have an amazing day. It was gorgeous yesterday. Hopefully it's gorgeous again today. Hope you have the most amazing weekend. And of course, as always, stay safe and make good choices.